All right, we're back. Chrissy, how are you?
I'm doing good, Mark. How are you?
I'm well. Awesome. Guys, Mark Fontanella from Hanson and Ryan. I represent the benefits department here, and Chrissy is our COO of Hanson and Ryan. And we are going through a couple more blog topics like we typically like to do. Today's topic is flood insurance 101. So we wrote a blog topic, couple FAQs, frequently asked questions about how to obtain a flood insurance policy, some differential of a FEMA policy as opposed to a private insurance policy. We're going to get into it. And like I said, Chrissy, if you have anything else to add within your answers, or if you have another question to ask, please do so.
Sounds good.
Awesome. So number one question here was what is the difference between a FEMA flood insurance policy and a private flood insurance policy?
Yes, we're getting this one a lot. So a FEMA policy that was put in place back in the 1960s when no insurance company really wanted to write flood insurance. It was a high risk. All the carriers pulled out. So the National Flood Insurance Program came together, the government basically, and put together a place for people to be covered for these exposures. It was very needed back in the day. It's still needed to this day. But recently, we've seen some private flood carriers come into place, so some private markets. And they're able to expand a little on stuff that FEMA maybe can't write. You get very limited coverage for your basement. So your contents, your drywall, carpet, that's not going to be covered in a FEMA policy. FEMA policy, when it comes to your basement, they're covering your utilities, your furnace, your washer and dryer. That's about it. So you can get a little expansive there. Also, loss of use is a big one. So if the business has to move out of the property or a homeowner needs to stay in a hotel, they're not going to supply coverage for that. Private policies, they do offer that. So it's a unique coverage. Also, FEMA policies, they're going to cap you at certain limits. You're not going to be able to get the higher limits to maybe completely replace your building if needed. Private market, you have a little more flexibility. And it also, more coverage might also come with a less expensive price tag.
Right.
So it is highly appealing. They are going to underwrite you. They don't really want the high risk. So there is, but if you have the option, your agent's going to work with you on the best option. Private market's probably the way to go.
Right. And I think you had touched on it with one of our clients. The premium, typically, how does that work with FEMA versus the private market?
I mean, you're going to probably see a little better in the private market, sometimes substantially difference. I've seen some crazy differences when you go into a private market. They're not controlled by the government. They make their own rules. They can make their own rates. A FEMA policy, no matter if it's written by one carrier or the other, it's FEMA. It's the same. You're going to pay the same amount for a FEMA policy, no matter what carrier.
And typically, FEMA wants their premiums up front, right, and paid in full for the entire year?
Yes, you have to pay that all up front with FEMA. Private market, you may have some options. You may be able to finance out that premium. But FEMA policy, you need to pay 100% of that premium up front.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Very good. All right. Number two question. What affects pricing on a flood policy?
So, I mean, your number one thing that is going to affect your pricing is your flood zone. So FEMA identifies certain flood zones. A and E are usually your highest risk, and then you have X is, your moderate. Your A and E, that means you're going to flood within a 100-year period. That's usually how they classify that. So your flood zone map, that's going to be your main indicator, but there's a lot of other factors that can come into play with your pricing. So your community rating system, sometimes your community will come into place, and they have measures to kind of divert floodplains, and that will get you a good rating. So that will come into play, the location of your structure. So this, your elevation certificate. If you obtain an elevation certificate, sometimes this is going to be beneficial for you. For instance, Hanson and Ryan is on this huge hill. If we flood, I feel like the end of the world is coming, but we're considered in a flood zone from our proximity to certain floods. And there's this tiny little brook behind us. If anyone saw it, they'd probably laugh. But we provided an elevation certificate, and our premium, I mean, they had us originally without it paying $10,000. It's like $500 now. It could substantially change your rates. So it's more specific to your property instead of kind of grouping you in and putting you in a box and a map, basically. Also, your design of your structure. So either your house, we've seen it after Superstorm Sandy, they all went on stilts. That's going to affect it. Putting a French drain in, getting a sub pump, backup generator, little things like that to help mitigate if there is a flood. That's all going to improve your rating. And then your type of property. I mean, you have your residential. They're usually priced the best. If you're a business, they're going to start charging you more. Secondary homes, they charge you a little more as well. So it's just that your type of your property as well. It's going to come into play.
And that's a good point, because when I was buying my house, it wasn't in a flood zone, but there was a sump pump, and it's almost like you can't even get past inspection without a functioning sump pump. So it's almost like the inspector doing part of the insurance company's job in order to mitigate your risk. So
Yeah.
I think if anything, when you first buying a house, you probably wouldn't even be able to buy the house until everything's squared away. So, right, I think it'll probably give you more forgiveness, if anything, on the premium.
Oh yeah, good inspector when buying a house is always important.
Right, absolutely. And okay, so next question would be that my house was remapped into a flood zone. So I think you and I touched on it at one point, where there's been some clients of ours that were a benefactor to this remapping. So maybe when they bought their house, they were in a flood zone, and now maybe it was outside of that 100-year, time span there, where now they're no longer in a flood zone. But then also, I think we've had clients where they weren't originally and now they are. So can you dig into that a little bit?
Of course, of course. Yeah, we've been seeing this happen, and recently, and usually it's people hear from their mortgage companies first, like, hey, you need to put flood insurance. And like, I bought this house like 10 years ago. I'm not in a flood zone. Well, the National Flood Insurance Program and FEMA, they are constantly looking at flood maps. Things change in the environment. We change our construction. Maybe we put up a dam, we build a road. That's going to change floodplains, and things are going to need to be adjusted for that. So yeah, we've seen people that aren't in a flood zone be put in a flood zone, and vice versa. I just had my client, he was paying, $5,000, and I got a policy in, and it was like $800. I'm like, what happened? And I saw he was remapped, and that was a good story. Obviously, there's sometimes when you never had a flood insurance policy. Now that's an extra expense that you didn't expect to pay for. The main thing is, don't worry when you get that initial thing from the mortgage company. Reach out to your agent. Let's run numbers. Let's see what we can do. Let's play with things. Just don't worry. We'll walk you through it and hopefully get a great option for you.
Right. Yeah. And I think it just comes back to not bearing the burden yourself as the client. Just talk to your insurance people, because like you said, we've had a good amount of experience with this, so we're probably the people to talk to. So good. Next question, Chrissy, I'm not in a flood zone. Why do I need flood insurance?
All right, let's first define what a flood is. I think that kind of helps people. A flood is defined as any excess water on land that is normally dry. So this doesn't have to be your overflow from a river or ocean. This can be a flash flood. This can be our horrible winters. We get these huge snow mounds. They melt. That could be it. Maybe a huge water main break kind of floods the whole town. Any excess water that's going to seep in your home, that's a big word. Our normal standard carriers in your homeowners policies will not like that word. If there's seepage, that's usually going to play in the play when it comes to a flood. So you don't need to be in a flood zone to need flood insurance. And it could be so minimal. It could be like $300 if you're not in a flood zone for a policy. So it's really worth it to take a look. And when we're running our homeowners quotes, I know in our office, we are automatically giving you that option. We're running to see if you're in a flood zone, first of all, and we'll give you the option to see if you want the coverage.
Great. Good to know. Awesome. So after all of this, deciphering between FEMA and private flood, the effects of the pricing on a flood policy, maybe being remapped or unmapped from a flood zone, not being in a flood zone, why do I need flood insurance? The grand question was, okay, what do I need to do in order to obtain a flood insurance quote?
The good part is you don't have to really know any of that. Leave that to us. Just to obtain a quote, we need basic information: your name, the property address, if you have a lien holder on there. Obviously, if you did any repairs, if you put in those French drains, if you put in certain flood ventilations, we want to know that. But otherwise, we can look up most of the information. We are going to find out if you're in a flood zone. We can find out your foundation type and the year built, all of that standard information. We're also going to recommend the coverage you put into place. So what it would take to rebuild your house if something catastrophic happens. So we're going to recommend a coverage for you. And the replacement cost isn't your market value. So that's not what you're going to pay for the house if you're going to buy it off the market. This is what it would take to rebuild. So we're going to recommend a price for you, and we'll help you walk through the whole process. Insurance is sometimes written in a whole another language, so we're here to be your interpreters in a way.
Exactly. Interpreters. Good. I like that. I like that. Yeah. Professional interpreter. So last but not least, let's hope this not a question, but it does happen. My house just flooded. Now what?
The dreaded call we hate to receive. And unfortunately, over these past couple of years with Sandy, Irene, we've become real big pros on this. I mean, we live next to a lot of rivers that unfortunately have disastrous effects on our communities. So the first thing and foremost, make sure you, your family, your pets are safe. Property is replaceable. So get to a safe place. After you're safe, then call your agent. They're going to walk you through the steps. You know, like I said, we've been through this a million times. So we're going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. We'll report it to your carrier for you. You can report them direct, but we'll handle that on your behalf. We just need to know when the flood happens. One thing to do for preventing it or before the flood claim happens is everyone has phones. Walk around your house, just record what property you have in there. Because when the time comes, especially if it's a huge thing, your mind's gonna be racing. You're not gonna remember, oh, I had a couch there and table there. It's really hard to kind of wrap your head on exactly what you had. So having those on big ticket items, getting the serial numbers on those just to prepare. But otherwise, you're gonna have to walk through after a flood. Document as much as possible after it too. Take pictures. Sometimes the adjusters can't get out right away, and you need to get rid of it because mold is going to set in and it's going to be a whole other problem. So the adjuster's usually going to contact you within 24 hours so you can walk through and ask him, what can I do? They usually want you to hold on to the property, but if, like I said, if it's going to get mold, you can get rid of it. Just take pictures. They'll come out, they'll inspect, they're going to write you up a proof of loss. That's basically everything that they think you have, what the cost is, and it's going to be a working process. Some claims are small, so it's going to be very easy. You know, I just need it cleaned out. Here's what it is. Here's the invoice, and it's done. Other claims are large. It's in your main living area. It's going to be a lot of back and forth, you know, getting them receipts. So anytime you purchase something new to replace it, just getting those receipts and going back and forth. After you sign the proof of loss, it's not done. You can always adjust things. So a lot of people are like, I don't want to sign this. Like, there's always negotiating after. So, and lean on your agent. They've done this so, like, in our office, we've done this so much that we can probably do it on the back of our hand. We are here to help you. This shouldn't be something you're used to. Hopefully it's not something you're used to doing flood claims. So we're here to help you. You know, we're here to get someone out there to help clean. We have a lot of great relationships with restoration companies, other contractors. We can help you and recommend certain supports that will help you move you through this process. And then you're going to get the checks. One thing that we've come in a contact or instance with is, if you got rid of a mortgage maybe and you didn't tell us and it's on the policy, your mortgage company is going to be listed on that check. They're going to have to endorse it. So there's ways to, you know, get it corrected. But some people are like, why is my mortgage on this? That's why they're usually listed, especially there's built-in coverage on there. So like I said, it's a back and forth. We're here to help. The carriers are usually very well as well. You know, the ones we work with, they're very good at communicating. So between the adjuster, your agent, it should be a good process, and hopefully only process you hopefully will never have to experience, but experience only less in your life.
That's a good point. And I think to hammer home the point of being at Hansen Ryan and knowing a lot of our clients are in our community where we can offer and refer them to you in order to help you along. And we know they do good work because we insure them too. It's the full package. It's a full cycle there. So it's nice.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We're here.
Cool. And again, the way I end every video is, Chrissy, thank you so much. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Insight was awesome. A lot of really good content. And if any of our viewers are watching the video or in search of some sort of insurance or some clarity on their home insurance policy or their flood insurance policy, give us a call. Number is 973 256-6000. You can ask for anybody and we'll direct you in the right direction. So again, Chrissy, thank you.
No,
And
you're welcome.
have a good
Thank
rest of
you.
the day.
Yes. Bye, guys.
Take care, guys.